Mayor Stretford, seconded by Councillor Court. Our NTA manager, Calvin, has just run to get Fraser because this was later on in the meeting. But did you have any opening comments as Mover?
I'm very aware that the organisers of Cruise in the Bays have worked with NPD to ensure that the road closure issues that happened at the last event aren't going to happen this time. The road closure is more confined so that the one piece system will still operate, preventing that clog up and the issues that some of the retailers had that was still open. I support this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Court. Opening the floor to fellow elected members. Any commentary? All right. Calvin, as staff, did you want anything to add anything further to what we'll take as read?
Through the Chair, I don't believe so, unless there's any questions on the report.
Thank you, President. All right, then we'll put this to a vote. All those in favour say aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me go.
We'll go to item 5.1 now, which is Councillor Court's notice of motion on the interim speed management plan for dedicated Barrow Island, which is on page 6. The motion is that Council consider the impact of the immediate changes that were made to the land transport law setting speed limits 2022 law. Councillor Court, you are the mover for this motion, and I believe Councillor McNally or Councillor Foy is going to be the seconder. You've both supported this notice of motion in your letter. Someone wants to go on? Thank you, Councillor McNally. I will pass the time over to you, Councillor Court.
Thank you, Your Worship. Don't have a lot to say on this because there's been a significant amount of email traffic which is sent all elected members, everything that I know. I brought this notice of motion not to re-deliberate on the matters of speed. The matters of speed were won or lost on the day, depending where you sat on the spectrum. This is purely about being not profligate with precious ratepayer resources. The Minister has indicated quite clearly that he has revoked the rule that was set by the previous government, and that he will be revoking the speeds set around schools. This will have a financial implication for the Far North District Council on the speed management plans that we've already adopted and those that have been proposed, because we will now need to review those speed limits and may ultimately be required to replace signage which comes at capital cost. We also don't know at this stage what the new rule will look like, and because of that, I do not have confidence that there will not be further changes required to be considered by the Council. So I don't want to see us spend, and I forget the sum, I'm sorry, Calvin, you'll be able to tell me what it's going to cost?
Through the Chair, I believe the full implementation cost for this catchment was in the vicinity of 600 to 800,000 subsidised.
600 to 800,000.
Signage and infrastructure improvements.
So the notice of motion from me seeks not to revoke the decision that this Council made in regard to the interim speed management plan for Kerikeri and Bay of Islands, but to defer it until such time as we have the new rule and we're able to put an entry test against the new rule to ensure that our speed limits comply with the rule before we invest significant money on installing new signs. That's all I have to say.
Councillor McNally.
Can I endorse those comments of Councillor Clark? The idea of bringing it to this meeting was, as Ian suggested, is I was hoping we might have additional information from Waka Kotahi on behalf of the Minister of what direction might be. And I just think deferring it, hold it, leave it on hold for a little bit longer. We've done the implementation. So part of today is, what time do we hold this? Till we wait for the Minister so we know exactly what's happening. Because one of the things they referred to in this report, Elizabeth or Calvin's done, is works associated with the implementation of this interim speed management plans are included within the approved 23-24 council plan budgets, including the associated subsidy approvals. Are those subsidies guaranteed? Is a question I have. You know, we might say, yeah, we'll go ahead, and the Minister says we're not doing any of this, so we'll be paying for that. There's just a few questions that he's given that I think need answering before we progress to the next stage, which is putting the signs up and carrying on with what's been agreed to previously.
Thank you, Councillor McNally. Calvin, in your response there, if you could add to it, my question is, I agree, put it on pause, I'm in support of this, not in stopping it, but just in deferring until we get a better look at what game plan is. Where I'm coming from, though, is wanting to ensure that we take our people along the ride with us. So for all intents and purposes, we've had a huge consultation with people of Bay of Islands. We've said, here's our speed program, this is what we're thinking. Then we had submissions. Then we said we're going to go on it. We've got direction now from the Ministry of Transport and from Waka Kotahi that actually we're going to, if you haven't done it yet, don't do it because we're going to, reset the game. Have we been in contact or communication with, every person who submits then gets an automatic response from council saying, thank you for your submission. And for all of those who came and gave verbal submissions, for all intents and purposes, the communities of the whānau think that this is can we ensure that we are keeping them in the loop? Like, we put this on pause, waiting for further direction because of these reasons. Were there any people, like I'm thinking of schools who were stakeholders that we actually reached out to in this space so that we can also email them to say, hey, this is what's going on. I just want a little bit of clarity around our communication plan in this space because for all intents and purposes, this is meant to be going ahead, and what we are potentially going to set with this recommendation is holding off.
Through the chair, I'll get to your question. With respect to Councillor McNally's point on the subsidised funding availability and guarantee, the funding associated with the program is approved and remains approved through to the end of June 2024. That is part of the current approved subsidised NLTF program. With delays that have been incurred to date, we are already at risk of implementing that full program, and there is no guarantee that that funding will continue beyond that. Any further delays mean that that funding and that component of the program will not be able to be delivered. So that's just for knowledge, and I don't believe it should impact whether you go ahead or not. But I think it is prudent to understand the Minister's direction moving forward, and we had hoped that we would have received that in late January, but as yet we've had no further guidance. With respect to the comms plan, to date, following receipt of Councillor Court's notice of motion, when we received any media inquiries, we said that the work was on hold, pending discussion at council meeting today, and we haven't taken any proactive steps beyond that until we receive any decision on the way forward. I believe we would have registering all submitters and those sorts of things. Yes, Elizabeth is nodding. And so depending on what's decided today, we can work with council on some kind of standard holding messaging on what is the plan. I think one thing, just to clarify, the minister's decision will rescind the rule, but as we understand it, will not require retrospective application of a new rule to existing treated. So one of the things the minister was stressing was that he did not want in councils to invest in development of new plans, which was the 24 start of it to be the 24 to 27 regional speed management. That speed management plan has been put on hold. If you recall, in a previous, I believe it was the Tikoku meeting, there was the decision about which catchments were going to be included in that regional speed management plan. Once we've received direction from the minister's office about what the new plan looks like and what the new target, we will bring that back to council in terms of what a future review might look like for 2027, if any. I think ultimately council is the road controlling authority and has a responsibility to set speed limits. This is about how that is set and how those are funded.
Thank you. Deputy Minister.
I actually want to speak against the notice of motion, but I'm proposing a foreshadowed amendment, and I'll just read it out and then speak to it and tell you why I'm voting against it. As the motion stands, I would vote against it, but I would support adding, and that council continue implementation of all the changes within the previously council approved speed management plan for Kirikiri Bay Islands. And the reasons are that in my, when I became aware of this notice of motion, I went hunting for what the minister's intent is, and the minister's intent isn't to take away local decision making on developing speed management plans. He's not looking to have this, make a rule and we have to go back and change stuff. He's just trying to make it so that we don't feel we need to have these blanket speed reductions across catchments. But what is different about our district compared to other parts of the country is we hadn't done any speed reductions, and I sound like a cracked record, we hadn't done any speed reductions in our district until we had the rules come in around 2016, and we could start doing reviews of the speed limits that were quite stupid. And I just want to take, for example, on focus on first Whangaroa Village. There's a road called Lua, which is 100 k's at the moment. It's a steep and that's, we moved in December to reduce that through this change. And also the Marae on Wainui Road. I had a site visit with the kaumātua there, in the lead up to them finishing that beautiful refurbishment, and they wanted to have the speed reduced there. That we achieved that through the adoption of speeds last December. We all know about Kapiro Road and Kirikiri Road. We've had people come to us, not just through the submission process for the review of those speeds, that comprehensive consultation. They came to us in separate meetings or in a long-term plan consultation last LTP and the LTP before. They said, why is our speed so high?
Point of order, Deputy Mayor is not speaking to the motion.
I'm speaking to
Deputy Mayor is speaking to speed, and I was very clear that I am not debating the speed. I'm asking for it to be deferred pending the minister's.
I'll get back on track.
I do not wish to deliberate on speed. That matter has been resolved.
Thank you, Councillor Court.
What I'm seeking is that our implementation that we approved in December is not put on hold through this notice of motion. So can I please have a seconder for my amendment, because we should not lose the funding. And Councillor Court's notice of motion specifically puts on pause what we adopted in December, what our people asked for in December. I'm sorry, I'm really, really cross about this because
Been on the notice of modification, Your Worship.
here's my notice.
In favour of the point of order. Councillor Hauki Harawira has seconded this foreshadowed amendment. Should Councillor Court's original motion fail, then the foreshadowed amendment will go up for voting.
Sorry, my intent is to add that to the current one.
Can I just get confirmation for clarity review the chair that Councillor McNally was supporting or seconding the deferral when you spoke?
Councillor McNally
Yes.
is
So on the
seconding
table,
this motion.
which is to
Current
defer.
motion.
So the current motion isn't so the current motion as I have it, which I'll give to you, is the council defer the decision to adopt the interim speed management plan for Cherry Creek Bay of Islands, which includes the following subcatchments, which was 1 through 10 as decided on the 16th of November.
The motion I have in my agenda is that council considers the impact of the impending changes that will be made to the land transport setting of speed limits 2022.
Yeah, thanks, Casey, for that, because yes, I've been confused. It sounded like something was being spoken to as notice of motion says to consider.
Yes.
That was one of my questions. I had two others as well.
Do we have Councillor Stratford's amendment put up?
Sorry, if I could just get one person speaking at a time, we'll go with Councillor McNally.
Could we get what Councillor Stratford's proposing on the screen? The existing motion is that we look at the impact of the impending changes. So what's she proposing? Well, then we're going to have to vote each one.
Okay, so just the original.
Deputy Mayor Stratford, I've ruled in favour of Councillor Court's point of order just then, and you've put this up as a foreshadowed amendment. A foreshadowed amendment is an amendment that will go through should the original motion be defeated. But can I just get clarity from standing orders on that? Because
Can I just add though that there are two speed things. There's the regional one, which yes, we should stop and consider that, but the speed implementation of the ones that we consulted on over a year ago should still go.
thank you, Deputy Mayor Stratford. Now, should Councillor Court's notice of motion be defeated, then you will get to speak to yours. And I've given you your time to speak against her motion itself and your foreshadowed one. So can I just get clarity, please, Case? As a foreshadowed amendment.
Sorry, just a part of
We
it.
will still go to a vote on Councillor Court's. If that passes, that defeats the foreshadowed amendment.
But I just want to be clear that the original mover and seconder of the council consider the impact. The impending was Councillor Court.
Clarity, my motion does not require council to vote on anything. My motion is only asking you to consider.
That's right.
That will lead to a motion. We had this conversation when we put the paper together.
And my question was, they both support each other. One is to consider the impact, and the second part is, I'm not sure about the wording because I haven't got my glasses, is to defer.
That's right. Thank you. So,
So-
Chair Anne was.
So they can actually.
What we need to do, what we need to do without any resolutions this council makes is to whatever comes through here is the direction we set for our staff to follow. Now, the direction is open for interpretation or misunderstanding, then we're going to have a problem with its implementation following. So the motion that we have at the table, as Councillor Court has said, is for us to consider. Now, if staff are unsure about what consideration means, they need to bring back to us after they've considered what they recommend we do as the next steps, is what I would take from this. Councillor,
Point of order, Your Worship, procedural.
yes, please, Councillor Foy. Sorry, Councillor.
The way that standing orders works is you do an amendment, we vote on the amendment, and then it becomes part of the substantive motion. At the moment, you're treating the amendment like its own separate motion.
Deputy Stratford put it forward as a foreshadowed amendment, not as an amendment to the original resolution. Unless you. Do you have the standing orders, can I? Is that right with the foreshadowed amendment?
Provide some explanation.
Yes, please, Councillor.
The intent of my notice of motion was not to say stop or go. The intent of my notice of motion was to simply say, since the council made the decision, new information has come to light that may have an impact on how we thought. Can we have a conversation around our thinking, and that will ultimately lead to a motion. That motion is we proceed or we don't. I think we've get ahead of it here. I don't think it's that complicated.
Speak again.
That's seconded by Councillor.
So can I have clarity? So what we are doing is just considering it, sitting around the table and doing it. Nothing is being stopped.
It has, it says in the briefing paper. Sorry, Your Worship.
Well, that's where it is. So the motion itself says council consider the impact, and then in the briefing papers it says stop. That's caused confusion, so I think that needs to be clarified, because I agree with there's some anomalies we've got, like Kirikiri Road, where people feel like probably against our.
Said the airport, so it's ready for that to be decreased.
So I don't want to see those things where it's clearly an issue.
Through the chair, just to clarify the briefing paper, when a notice of motion is received on a decision made by council, at that time, staff must stop any irreversible work on that decision until the notice of motion is heard. So that has been placed, that work was placed on hold on receipt of the notice of motion. Once that has been heard, depending on the consideration and outcomes of that discussion, which is happening today, then staff will either proceed or not proceed, depending on those outcomes. We are required not to proceed with irreversible works as soon as the notice of motion is received. So that the briefing paper, when it says has stopped, that means from the time the notice of motion is received until that is considered by council. Does that clarify, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, but then if we vote on this or not, presumably you can go ahead or not.
So
That's
through the chair, if council accepted the motion, considered it, and nothing, and as a result there was no vote to defer or to do anything else, then that would be deemed, as far as I understand it, the motion was considered, and then we would continue to proceed. Just to clarify a couple of things on those. At the moment, the first thing that there is I guess, not reversible without significant effort is the final sign off from the Director of Land Transport. So as soon as that's signed off, that becomes the approved speed limits for implementation. So we had the speed limits sitting in front of the director to approve at the time the notice of motion was received, and we advised Kotahi staff to put that on hold. That was the reversible decision effectively. If we hadn't done that and it would be proceed, because those speed limits haven't been approved, we can't proceed with any other license. So until council have considered.
Thank you, Kelvin. And just the rules on Councillor Foy's point of order on procedure there, you were correct.
Thank you.
The wording was wrong in that it was foreshadowed amendment. Foreshadowed amendment is if there is already an amendment on the table, which will then get considered after the original amendment is defeated. As this is the first amendment, Councillor Stratford has moved an amendment to the motion, which has been seconded by Councillor Haukiat Harawira. We now go to we put on pause the original, and then we go according to this pretty little diagram. I reckon, do you reckon by the end of this, I'll have it, like, I'm pretty sure Mayor Carter's just to make it up. So we do have to open up the floor to debate for Deputy Mayor Stratford's amendment. If we could get that up on screen, please. It has been moved and seconded, and Deputy Mayor Stratford, you may now speak as mover of this amendment to its merits.
Apologies, everybody. So I totally support the consideration of the 24-27 Regional Speed Management Plan being placed on hold and seeking, us getting further direction and decision, giving a decision to staff after we know what the rule is. But we have been sent some signals on their website, and I don't think that what they're signalling is actually going to conflict with the separate take, which is the Bay of Islands, Kirikiri section of roads, which have been, there's Opua, Haruru, Paihia. Those communities were comprehensively consulted with well over a year ago. Kirikiri, Whangarua, Kyle, many of those people, I've been to meetings in those communities where they're like, why can't we get our speed reduced, along our road? Some of these roads are 60. There's a little side road off Waipapa Road, Pounamu Place, is 100 k's. It should be 50. So that's why I'm pushing for us to not hold back on what our community, our locals have told us they want. The people that live in these homes, they want, and but I total call pausing the regional speed management plan, and that's why I've lumped it together with, within. So the first part, the council consider the impact of the impending changes that were made to the land transport rule, blah blah blah, and that council continue with the previously approved speed management plan for Kirikiri Bay of Islands. You've all heard my spiel on it before, so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Stratford. Councillor Halkiad Harawira, as seconder of the amendment, would you like to speak to it?
I need to say that the new amendment just incorporates both trains of thought, and I'm comfortable with it, Hilda.
Thank you. Open the floor to any member who'd like to speak in support or against. Councillor Poyet.
Thank you, Member. I have two questions to the staff in order to gauge the work program and funding. So my partai to both our safety engineer and to NTA. Number one, with the $800,000 of funding, if we delayed it and didn't spend it, how much of ratepayers' money would be not utilised, and what other works could we put that into? If the minister did change the work program going forward and we delayed it until we knew that. The second aspect was, if we do delay it and then it doesn't end up going forward based on the minister's new program, what would happen in terms of any placemaking elements or any aspects relating to what our safety engineer Elizabeth Stacey talked about in the submissions process, had that lead-on effect into the low-cost, low-risk work program for this same financial year?
Thank you, Governor. Are you happy to?
Yep, and I
You
might
might not be happy, but we would respond to the questions there.
I might call on Elizabeth if I get stuck. But so with respect to the first point, should the funding not proceed or not be uptaken, the reallocation of local share within this current NLT period would not attract subsidy for another activity. So if it was decided not to proceed, then council could choose to use that for unsubsidised activity, but we could not reallocate that local share component to do something else because there is no other subsidy available. So does that answer your question?
So just to clarify in dollar figures, if it's $800,000, 28% of that dollar figure is the local share component. We're getting 72%.
It's just under 69.
Through the checks, 69.
69% of it.
So the 71 comes into effect.
Yeah.
Second component, impact on placemaking. So
Yeah.
this is where I'm going to call Elizabeth up, I think.
Mhm.
As I understand it, the majority of placemaking activities are not included within the current year's plan. They're in future years, although there are some of the placemaking activities that are dependent on appropriate speeds to be in place before that infrastructure can be built. So it is kind of a little bit situational, dependent on each activity.
Sorry, Councillor Boyd. Yep.
Is there a dollar figure for the amount proposed in the low cost, low risk related to placemates? That if we made a decision today, that would impact that future work program and that financial planning and the next long-term plan, which is already outlined in the AMP and already lodged with NZTA.
From a through the chair, from a speed review implementation perspective, this catchment isn't in the next long-term plan. We'd have to look at what other activities that are dependent on this are in the long-term plan, but I don't believe any of them are in the transport area. So.
Okay.
Councillor Vucic.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yeah, specific to that questioning, Gilwan, I just want to ask the question whether you're clear on this. So there's two parts to that. And that is, in making these decisions, including the previously approved roads, you are going to consider the impact of pending changes. In other words, what we're saying is I can see money being saved where you can, and therefore this becomes your discretion to implement the reduced speed limits that have been identified and consulted on that make a lot of sense. And Kirritu Road, which has been raised as one that I would consider this anomaly at 80, when you got 60 further away from Kirritu by the airport. So I'd expect that to be, and around schools, to be dealt with in your consideration. But if there's any others that sitting at 80 that doesn't make sense and there's no need to spend that, I think you would have that freedom to do that. Do you see that as meaning that?
Through the chair, with respect,
If our staff have put up anything, John, I would hope that they have already considered it.
through the chair, with respect, that consideration has taken place through the process that we've already been through as part of the speed reviews. I think to underpin that, from what staff understand of the minister's intent, and we have put the regional speed management plan for 24-27 on hold, and it will remain. So with respect to this one, we understand that the minister intends that road controlling authorities consider and understand public feedback that was achieved through this process. We understand that we should consider, there's an indication that variable speed limits should be considered around schools and not the blanket limits. There are areas within here where variable speed limits have been considered and I think are being applied. Yes. Yep. The final thing is for a stop to the blanket approach to speed limit reductions. And one thing that has been very probably lost in the process of the speed limit reviews through Northland is through the catchment-based approach, staff assess every road individually. And an engineering recommendation is put forward that forms the basis of the start of public consultation. Then council considers the feedback on public consultation and changes are made if it doesn't make sense. So from staff perspective, we have not applied a blanket rule, with the exception of the fact that there is guidance within the 22 rule about how you treat schools. So, but even with how you treat schools, we have still looked at every street individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Court.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to go back to what I said right at the beginning. That in bringing this notice of motion today, I do not wish to re-deliberate speeds. The matter of speeds was won or lost on the day, depending where on the spectrum you sat. This notice of motion purely because I do not wish to see a wasteful use of ratepayers' money. And I think to proceed today, we could potentially put a ratepayers' contribution, which is $232,000, at some risk. It won't be the whole amount. Some of it may be at risk. As part of the government's 100-day plan, the minister said that he will revisit this rule. So I'm just asking for a pause. I'm not asking to redeliberate whether Kirikiri Road is 60, 80 or 100. I could go down the rabbit hole of drive to the condition still applies. It's the overarching legislation, so don't drive at 100 kilometres an hour if the road is 60 metres long. I brought this notice of motion purely to say the minister has said that he will introduce a new rule. The rule will implement requirements for variable speed limits on roads approaching schools. Not all of ours have that, rather than permanent speed limit reduction. I consider it undesirable, the minister says, for road controlling authorities to apply public money and resources in developing speed management plans and ergo implementing them, only to have to revisit the plans when the new rule takes effect. Given this, I encourage you to consider the new rule before making any final decision. There is nothing to be lost by asking for this matter to lie on the table until the new rule is out, allowing the ETA the opportunity to provide a sense test, fact test against the new rule and come back to us with a report and saying, minor tinkering is required, no tinkering is required, and major tinkering is required. If we proceed now and Calvin gets the instruction to go away and order $800,000 worth of signs, and we find then that we don't need some of those signs, we have to alter some of those signs, that would be a profligate use of precious ratepayers' dollars. We do not know what the minister's intent is, and we will not know what the minister's intent is until the rule is put before us. So this motion that I've got on the table today, Nelson, says today, let's just press pause for a minute, check, if it still go, you go, need some alterations, let's alter it. But I think you've got a bit emotional in this debate.
Councillor Vucic.
We are speaking to this motion, not the original. We should be focusing on this.
I am, but I'll wait for a minute.
We are speaking to this motion.
Roll in favour of Councillor Vucic's point of order. Councillor Corder, if you could please ensure that you speak against the...
In summary, Your Worship, I believe that pushing ahead with this now potentially puts ratepayers' money at risk.
Galvin.
Oh, beg your pardon, there was one, I did have a significant point. Sorry, Your Worship. Calvin said, funding is approved through to June 24, no guarantee the funding will continue beyond that. I hope that doesn't impact on anybody's thinking, because that is flawed. If the government is putting out a rule that will require us to do this, they have to fund it. So I think it's misleading to suggest that if we don't pick up this funding now, we lose it, and that may influence making this decision. I'll close.
Councillor McNally.
I'm a bit disappointed with this, and I'll vote against it. Because the original part was just, hi-ho, let's get a clear understanding of the minister, what he's saying. My understanding of the minister's intent is he's back to basics of road maintenance. There's actually two parts to this. This speed management plans from 24 to 27, and the minister's indicated that that'll become discretionary, not mandatory. So, and Mr. Thomas has told us that that is on hold. The second part is whether we carry on as Kowhai Stratford's indicated, proceed with this that we've already consulted on. We may do that, but just hanging on until we understand exactly what the minister does want. Now, if it's a month, I don't think it's going to affect anything. And as Councillor Points pointed out, if we print a whole lot of signs that say 60k, and he says we don't want any roads at 60, or it's on a managed approach, so we need some 80s and 60s or whatever, they might turn out What are we going to do with it? Now, so Councillor Court's point is there's no need to rush this. With, what is it, 10th of February, 11th of February or something? We've got till the end of June. Put them signed up, won't take long. So long as they put the right place. And
Thank you,
our
Councillor.
house movers don't bowl them as we drive along the road, it'll be good. We'll save money.
Councillor Copeland.
I clearly want to come back to our discussion here. And for my English, it clearly says consider. But an outcome of our consideration debate here is defer or hold. The underlying narrative that we're hearing today is around the consider the impacts. I think for myself, I'm thinking in terms of if the rule, and the rule we're talking about is the setting speed limits. And if there's changes within that, as Councillor Court mentioned, the tinkering will take effect. And I think what tends to happen is because of our learned councillors who are in that portfolio have the narratives that capture all the information here. We're working off the information that's on the table here. My biggest concern is kahika ko ngā tangata I tū ki te tuku, o rātou kōrero, o rātou whakaro, o te holo o ngā motoka kei runga I te pepa, kei kone. Tuatu tēnā, ngā āhua, ngā rori katoa puta mō, tai tokana, ka hai, ka hau mai āmuri tēnei, when the new rule comes in. Nō reira, Kelvin, I've forgotten your name, but all I know is in here. Tell me, the thinking will be around supporting what Constitution Republic. That's my primary focus. There's people, they've submitted their kōrero, they've submitted their reasons why. And if the rule is going to go so opposite this, then it's our responsibility as councillors to support these people who put their recommendations through. So in some ways, deferring, if that is where our direction is going, we would need some time frame. And if this other thing is that what can actually progress without falling into the bigger pool of major changes, because 800K, if it's lost, difficult to draw back.
Try and answer your question through the chair. So, and it kind of links to the point that Councillor Court made about the 800,000. And I guess the point I was making, we have current approved projects within the 21-24 LTP program that are funded related to this catchment implementation. Councillor Court is right that government needs to support any change in law. However, at present within our submission, we do not have any projects within the next LTP because they are already catered for in here. So it would require a change to the LTP and it would require a change to the submission to Waka Kotahi, noting that we already understand that the National Transport Fund is restrained. Also want to make it clear that staff are not advocating one way or another for speed limits. We are here to implement the wish of the council. So we have attempted to highlight the risks, our understanding of intent, and the process that has been gone through. When it comes to implementation, it is a little bit more than just going out and putting up some signs. So when we put this on hold, until we receive the director's sign off of the speeds, we do not fully progress the detailed design of the implementation plan. So as I understand it, we don't yet have a full detailed design. So that activity still needs to be undertaken. The detailed design then informs the procurement and informs the installation. So that is the risk. In saying that, Councillor Court is completely correct that things may change that require rework. So those things today from staff, we were supportive of council considering the decision that was made and the potential impacts and are seeking direction on the way forward.
Thank you very much, Kelly. E hihi ana ki te kiki te kōtore o tēnei whenita, e haka raru ana i a tātou i tēnei rā. Now, with all due respects to the Minister of Transport, also our Minister of Local Government, he is causing kōrero across the country in council chambers as we all await His High Majesty's rules on high so that we can have better direction on what the heck we need to do. Now, I'm someone who sits here and says, let us decide, right? Locally led. I'm in favour of this amendment. Now, I know that we could waste money. There's the potential there. What I would expect, though, is that for the school ones, we know that with variable speed zones are incredibly likely because it's been stipulated to be out, and it will be variable, not at all times outside the school. It should be 30 Ks, but it might be between school times or something like that.
Can I just check something with
In any case, I'm in favour of this one because we've gone out, we've asked. We're going to get $552,000 from NZTA. It's already been approved. Putting up 248,000. The changes that are being signalled as potentially impacting on this, I do not think are going to cost us 238,000 or are going to affect us losing out on that $552,000. So absolutely acknowledge what Councillor Court and Councillor McNally have brought to the table here. But this is one of those ones where, guess what? I'm feeling a little bit rebellious today, and so I'm just going to vote in favour of this one. Thank you, Calvin.
Yes, through the chair. Just pointing out as well, as I mentioned, the detailed design phase is still in progress. There is, I guess, and there is also a time frame for the Director of Transport to approve the speed limits. So should council,
We could capture things within that time.
so what I'm saying is that there is still some time before the physical implementation commences, where we could wait for that, have the guidance from the minister and reassess impact before any physical implementation. Should we agree to just proceed with the process moving forward today? Again, it's proceed.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Stratford, right of reply.
I just want to say thank you very much for adding in the detail. So, which council meeting it was. Just want to reiterate that again, there are two different things. So, still consider the 24 to 27 impacts. The rule impacts which will apply to the 24 to 27, which we have not adopted. We just said we would go ahead and do one. You guys need to consider what that means now. But we're here as decision makers. We're the ones that actually set the speed limits, not the minister. And we've made a decision to implement those speeds based on consultation with the people that live here or own properties. And, you know, there is a local government act that gave us the powers to make those decisions, despite what that rule could mean. And honestly, what he signalled on the website is that he's taking away, it's going to be the minister that signs off things, not the director eventually. It's going to be discretionary to have the development of speed management plans happen. The speed limits around schools are going to, you know, that rule is being revoked. But what we want for our communities, what they've told us they want, is more important to me, and it should be to everybody around this table, than what the minister says. And yeah, I think that I'll leave it at that and see where the vote's going. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put this amendment to the floor. In favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Councillor Foy, Councillor McNally, Councillor Hawke. Abstention from Councillor Radich. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3 against with 1 abstention. The amendment is carried, which will now, wait, I've got a little graph thing. The amendment is carried. It will now become a new substantive motion. I will need a mover for.
Can I have a question before we go? When are you meeting, Mr. Minister?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Pliskevich was in favour of it. Hopefully next week.
The 24th of February, 3 p.m.
At least it's hopefully. So this amendment now forms a substantive motion, which I will need a move. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Stratford, and a seconder.
Aye.
Thank you, Councillor Halkia Paruira. Here we We'll put that to vote. All in favour say aye. Those opposed?
Opposed.
And we've got the same, please. Got that. And that is carried. We will now go to a break, a 10-minute break. I will see you all back here at
Thank you very much, email pause, Ali. Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And welcome back to our council meeting. We are now going to give way, because I love them, and move into the public excluded section of our meeting, and I'll just find my resolution to get us there. So I'll be moving a resolution to exclude the public for items 9.1, of previous minutes, 1.2, minutes, 70 plus 1.3, additional funding increase for the Te Huku Sports Hub. We have Manu Hiri who have travelled far to come for this, so we'll jump over to PX so that we can deal with that before going back. As a part of this resolution, we will also request through for Mark Osborne representing the Te Huku Sports Hub to be admitted to the public excluded section of the meeting so he can provide a PX deputation to us, as well as Kawati Wakeford, our council. Seconded by Deputy Administrator. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, motion is carried. If we could please pause our live stream.